It started on a Tuesday afternoon. The sun was high. People were rushing in and out of the cafe on Jefferson Street, and everything looked normal until he walked in. A white man in a crumpled suit, holding a phone in one hand and a latte in the other, barged through the door like he owned the place. His voice was loud, aggressive. People turned to look, but no one said anything except her. She was seated by the window, a black woman, probably in her late 20s, dressed smart, calm, and focused on her laptop. She had earbuds in, nodding to her music. But even through the music, she heard it, the slur, the sharp, cutting word. He had bumped into a waiter young, maybe 19, and dropped his coffee. And then, as if that mistake gave him power, he shouted, "Clean it up. That's what people like you are good for." His eyes flicked over to her deliberately. She looked up, took one earbud out, and asked quietly, "Excuse me, what did you say?" He turned, loud enough that the whole cafe froze. "Mind your business," he barked. "Nobody's talking to you." But it was too late. Eyes were on them now. She stood up, calm, not loud. No anger, just powerful. "You don't get to talk to people like that," she said, her voice firm. And that's when it happened. He slapped her. A dead silence fell over the cafe. People gasped. Someone's coffee cup shattered on the ground. For half a second she didn't move. But then she turned slowly, looked him dead in the eyes, and said, "You just made the biggest mistake of your day." She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She moved fast. In one swift motion, she grabbed his wrist, twisted it behind his back, and pushed him down over the table, controlled, trained, precise, like she'd done it 100 times before. The man shrieked, begged, struggled, but he couldn't move. And that's when someone in the back said, "Oh my God, she's a self-defense instructor." Boom, the whole cafe erupted. Phones came out. People started clapping. The same waiter he insulted called 911. Police arrived within minutes. He tried to lie. He tried to twist the story. But the video's crystal clear. He assaulted her. She defended herself. He was arrested on the spot. And her? She walked out with her head high, not saying a single word to him because she didn't have to.
The next morning, it wasn't just the cafe talking. The entire city was. The video had gone viral. Millions of views in hours. The headline? Black woman takes down racist man who hit her with one move. But the man? He wasn't done. Yet, from his holding cell, he lawyered up fast. Claimed he was the real victim. That she assaulted him. That it was reverse discrimination. He even said, "I feared for my life." But the truth was already out there. 7 camera angles, dozens of witnesses, and one self-defense instructor with a flawless record and a calm that now inspired. Millions. Still, the court summoned her. She appeared the next day wearing the same clothes from the video. On purpose, the media flooded the courthouse. She didn't flinch inside the courtroom. He sat smug with a new suit, new lawyer, and a whole speech rehearsed. When asked to speak, he stood, dramatically wiping fake tears. "I've been traumatized. I was attacked. That woman humiliated me in front of everyone." The judge leaned forward, double quotes, "You mean the woman you hit?" Silence. Then, the screens lit up, every angle, every second, every racist word. The slap, her response, the control, the precision. The courtroom watched in silence. And then, gasps, because someone submitted a surprise video. It showed the same man, just 2 weeks earlier, shouting at a delivery driver, using the same racist slurs. He even pushed the man off his bike. The judge turned to him. "Sir, this isn't your first time, is it?" His lawyer turned pale. He was caught, exposed, cornered. The judge leaned back, looked at the woman, and said, "Mom, you displayed remarkable restraint, strength, and discipline. You did not just defend yourself. You became a mirror. And he couldn't stand what he saw. Then the final blow. Case dismissed. Charges dropped. Mr. Carson, you are hereby ordered to undergo anger management, racial sensitivity training, and serve 90 days of community service. Under supervision. The woman? She turned to leave. No words. No smile. Just that same calm presence. But just before stepping out, she looked back and said softly, "Next time you raise your hand to hit someone, make sure they're not stronger than your hate." The moment she walked out of that courthouse, the world had already chosen its side. She didn't ask for fame. She didn't want attention. All she did was stand up. And somehow, that made her dangerous. By the time she reached home, her phone was already flooded. News anchors, bloggers, social justice pages, talk shows. Even celebrities were posting clips of her courtroom moment. Some called her the calmest warrior they'd ever seen. Others said she had redefined what self-control under racism looks like. And then there were the haters. Comments began to roll in. She overreacted. He just made a mistake. She humiliated him. This is reverse racism. Why is she being praised for attacking a man? She didn't respond, but it got worse. 2 nights later, her car tires were slashed. A brick was thrown through her apartment window with a note. You may have won the courtroom, but not the streets. Her neighbors were shaken, but she, still calm, still quiet. She went to the police. They promised an investigation, but she knew better. They didn't even take fingerprints off the brick. 3 days passed. Then came the invitation. It was alive. National talk show one that rarely invited everyday citizens. But they made an exception. They wanted her to share her side. She hesitated, not because she was afraid, but because she knew silence was sometimes stronger than words. Still, something told her it was time, not for her, but for others watching. Those without voice. Those who needed to see it could be done. She accepted. The stage was bright. Cameras everywhere. Across from her sat a polished host in a crisp suit. He smiled, but his eyes were sharp, probing. Not kind. The interview started gently. So, tell us, what was going through your mind when he hit you? She paused, then said softly, that no one would believe me if I fought back too hard. That if I stayed calm, maybe someone would. The audience nodded. But the host leaned forward. Some say you embarrassed him too much, that you made things worse by pushing him into the table. Your response was extreme. Her eyes didn't blink. You want extreme? He hit me, in public, for speaking. People watched. No one moved. You call my defense extreme? I call it survival. A hush fell over the crowd. The host tried again. Do you forgive him? She looked directly at the camera. I forgive myself for not staying quiet, for not shrinking, for finally making someone like him afraid of someone like me. The internet exploded. That clip alone hit 12 million views in 48 hours. But behind the scenes, something else was building. Remember the delivery driver the man assaulted 2 weeks earlier? He came forward, and he wasn't the only one. 4 more. Victims, all minorities. All verbally or physically attacked by the same man. None of them were believed until now. They shared their stories. Some wept. One said, I thought no one would ever listen to me. She made them listen. And just like that, the case reopened. Not against her. Against him. This time, the charge was racial harassment and repeated assault. And the one who filed the formal complaint? The waiter from the cafe. The same 19-year-old he had insulted. He told the press, she gave me courage. That's what strength really looks like. Not muscles or noise, but calm when it counts. Meanwhile, the woman? She turned down every endorsement deal. ignored every fame offer. She returned to her small self-defense class, teaching young girls how to hold their ground. When asked why she stayed quiet after the chaos, she smiled. Because I already said everything I needed to, with one look and one move. A year later, man was convicted on all charges, sentenced to a year of community service, public apology tour, and rehab for anger issues. He disappeared from public view, but the woman, she became a symbol, not a celebrity, not a hero, a mirror, the kind of mirror that shows people what they don't want to see and what they could become if they chose courage over silence. The world thought it was over, but real change doesn't end in a courtroom. It begins in the shadows after the lights go off. After the man's conviction, things went quiet, or so it seemed. The woman resumed her life, teaching self-defense to young girls 3 evenings a week. She stopped giving interviews, stopped checking comments, stopped reacting to praise or hate. But something had changed, not in her, in the people around her. One day, a letter arrived. No return address. Just a single envelope slipped under her studio door. Inside, folded neatly, was a short note. Asterisk, I was there that day. I didn't say a word. I wanted to, but I was afraid. Because of you, I'm not anymore. Asterisk, there was no name. Just a photo of a young black woman now leading a protest outside a courthouse. And then came more. Dozens of letters, emails, texts. From people she didn't know. Some were students. Others were grandmothers. One was a school janitor. All of them had one thing in common. They had all been silent once. But now they had found their voice because of her. But behind that light, there was still a shadow. The man, the one who had hit her, lied about her, tried to ruin her, had disappeared from the public eye. His name scrubbed from social media. His old company fired him. His family reportedly disowned him. But silence doesn't always mean surrender. Some said he was bitter, that he'd sworn revenge. Others said he was broken. But no one really knew until one rainy evening. 6 months later, she was closing up her studio. It was late. The lights flickered in the hallway. Thunder echoed outside. And then a knock on the glass. She turned. A man stood there, soaked in rain, barely recognizable. It was him. Same eyes. But something was different. She didn't open the door, just stared. He didn't move. He slowly took out a folded paper, pressed it against the glass, and stepped back. No words, just that one paper. Then he turned and walked into the storm. She waited a moment, then unlocked the door and picked it up. It was an apology. But not just words. It was a signed statement, a full confession, admitting everything. Every act, every lie. Every victim. Attached was a letter to the court, requesting the reopening of older complaints and asking that charges be reevaluated against himself. And on the back of the letter, these words were handwritten. Asterisk, I thought I was untouchable. That power meant I could take anything. But you didn't just fight back. You made me face who I really am. I don't deserve forgiveness, but I wanted you to know you didn't just defeat me. You changed me. Asterisk, she sat down on the studio floor. And for the first time in months, she cried. Not out of pain, not out of anger, but because somehow, in a world that had taught her that people like him never change, he just did. Some stories end in silence, but hers, it echoed. Months passed. The world moved on. But the impact she left didn't. The video of her courtroom strength was now part of law school discussions. Her calm resistance taught in self-defense classes, and her face painted across murals in cities she'd never even been to. But what did she do? She stayed quiet. Still teaching, still guiding, still choosing action over applause. Until one day, the city mayor showed up, not with cameras, not with media. Just a quiet visit. He said, "There's something happening out there. People are waking up, and we want you to lead something for the next generation." She was offered a platform, not a show, a program, a funded citywide initiative where she would run The Power Within, a self-defense and empowerment program for young girls and women of color across the city. At first, she hesitated. She wasn't a politician. She wasn't a public figure. But then she remembered the letters. The delivery driver, the waiter, the silent girl in the cafe corner. And she said, "I'll do it, but not for the applause. For the ones who still don't believe their voice matters." The program launched 6 months later. First week, only 8 girls showed up. Second week, by the end of the first month, over 600 girls from all backgrounds had signed up, and not just for self-defense. They came for something more powerful. Belief. Then came the news. The man, the one who had once slapped her, had checked himself into long-term therapy. He was speaking quietly in youth rehab centers, sharing his own story of unlearning hatred. Not for forgiveness, not for followers, just for truth. And one day, unannounced, quietly, he showed up at a Power Within event, not as a guest, not as a speaker, just a volunteer, cleaning mats, serving food, watching from the sidelines. She saw him. Their eyes met. No words were spoken, but the message was loud. Asterisk. Change is real, not always immediate, but always possible. Asterisk. The program grew beyond the city. It became national, then international. From Ghana to Georgia, girls were training not just to protect themselves, but to speak, to lead, to rise. Years later, at the opening of the 100th Power Within Center, someone asked her, "If you could go back to that day in the cafe, would you have done anything differently?" She smiled. Calmly, the way only she could. "Yes," she said. "I would have stood up even sooner." Real strength isn't about how hard you can hit. It's about how long you can stay standing when the world wants you to fall. She didn't raise her voice to be heard. She didn't raise her fist to be feared. She raised herself. In silence, in truth, in power. And in doing so, she didn't just change her story. She changed everyone else's too. Remember, you don't need to be loud to be strong. You don't need to fight to win. Sometimes the calmest person in the room is the most unstoppable. Stand tall, speak truth, and never ever let hate go unchallenged.